Okay, we left off talking about the different types of plate boundaries: divergent, the three type of convergent, and transform. You were supposed to be able to answer these 4 questions by the time you were finished. We are now going to move on to what this looks like on the grand scheme of things. So a complete cross-section of the Earth and its movement. On this diagram, you'll notice several different boundaries. You'll notice you have your divergent, convergent. They don't list the transform. I'll show you where we can find those in just 1 second. So our convergent boundaries are anywhere where 2 plates collide. So for example, here and here, we have a convergent with a subducting plate. Since this is an ocean crust, this is ocean crust, this then would be an ocean to ocean convergent boundary. You have your volcanic island arc here, your deep sea trench here, and you'd have your shallow, medium, and deep volcanoes, or earthquakes, I'm sorry. At this location, you have your divergent boundary, where 2 plates are moving away from each other. You'll notice they don't move away from each other in a straight line. Where they are not moving away from each other, if you remember back to our previous video, this would be a transform boundary, where they're sliding past each other. So these would represent transform. So the plate is moving this direction and this direction. For our divergent, and where they're sliding past each other, would be transform. This location over here, then, we have another convergent boundary as this plate collides with this plate. At this location, this would be, since we have an ocean plate here colliding with a continental plate, this would be an ocean-continent convergence. Again, your trench, your coastal mountain chain, and active volcanoes. At this location, then, you have this plate moving this direction and this one moving in that direction. We have another divergent boundary. This would be known as a rift valley because 2 continental plates are moving away from each other. Eventually, this will open up big enough, fill with water, and become a mid-ocean ridge. This location right on the edge, we now have a continental plate colliding with a continental plate. That is our continent-continent convergence. So in cross-section, this is how the Earth basically recycles itself. We have areas where sedimentary rock can form in the ocean. We have areas where metamorphic rock forms from collision. And we have areas of igneous rock in volcanic eruption. To summarize all of these different types of plate boundaries, then, we're going to create a tree map. The 3 main types of boundaries that we talked about include divergent, convergent in the 3 types, and transform. The key features to each we can find in the list below. Mid-continental mountain chain would go with a convergent boundary. But what type of convergent boundary would that be? In this case, we're talking about a continent-continent convergence. The other type of convergence we talked about were ocean-continent and ocean-to-ocean convergence. If we work our way down the list, a mid-ocean ridge will be associated with a divergent boundary. Shallow earthquakes will find at divergent boundaries at the transformed sections, the fracture zones. Shallow earthquakes we also find in continent-continent convergence and at transform. Shallow, medium, and deep earthquakes we know are located at ocean-continent convergence and ocean-ocean convergence because of that subducting plate. Rift valleys located at divergent boundaries where 2 plates are moving apart, creating a split in the continental crust. Hydrothermal vents we also said were located at divergent boundaries. Evidence of a fault at the surface we mentioned when we talked about the San Andreas fault and these transform boundaries. Deep sea trenches are associated with subduction, so at ocean-continent convergence and ocean-ocean convergence. Active volcanoes also associated with subduction, so ocean-continent and ocean-ocean convergence. Volcanic island arcs we talked about with our ocean-ocean convergence. And the last but not least are coastal mountain chains we talked about with ocean-continent convergence. So in summary, these are the characteristics of each type of plate boundary.